Richard I, he was King of England from 1189 until 1199, so for 10 years. And he was the King of England, but not just of England. He was the ruler of the Angevian kingdom, or Anjou. Angevian is a French name, Anjou the English name. And that is a big empire. England, and then almost completely France, or the western part of France, with the Normandy and Aquitania. And he was the son of Henry II and of Eleanor of Aquitaine. And his father had died, and he had imprisoned his mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, because she was plotting with her sons, maybe Richard I was one of them, also called Richard Linheart, against Henry II. He imprisoned her then at Château at the castle. And when she came free again, she could roam about freely in the castle, but not have affairs with other people who might have helped to overthrow Henry II. There was some problems with who was ruling what part in the big empire. The book is saying that Henry II, the father of Richard I, had a short-tempered and untrusting nature, and the big empire with different cultures in different places, there were some problems with ruling it. Now, Eleanor of Aquitaine then started to be about in the country and travel about the whole country. She was already 70 years old, 70, 80 years when old, while Richard I was ruling. Now, and she was a lot, Eleanor of Aquitaine, going about trying to keep the nobility, the favor of the ruling of Eleanor of Aquitaine and Richard I, and looking after the army and the estates. One reason for that is that Richard I, already in the year when he was crowned in Westminster Abbey in 1189, went together with Philip of France on the Third Crusade to the Holy Land. His mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, had already accompanied her first husband, King Louis VII of France. She married when later Henry II, also on the Second Crusade to the Holy Land. Now, Richard I was on the Third Crusade, 1189-1192 in the Holy Land. He wasn't able to reconquer Jerusalem, but he took Acre and he defeated the Saracen King Saladin at Arsuf near Jaffa. He even came back. Now, and he had a younger brother, John. Eleanor of Aquitaine had together with Henry II 8 children. Now, he had a younger brother, John. And while he was away, Richard I, John Longchamp and William the Chancellor of England, were governing, and the book isn't saying it, but from the previous pages, Eleanor of Aquitaine was also governing. Now, John, his younger brother, the book is now saying that there are some people talking about him. I think the book is referring to people living hundreds of years ago, during the time, very negatively, other people more positively. And one thing which the negative people are pointing to, that he was maybe even plotting and be traitorous against his brother Richard I, was that Richard I came back from the Middle East and was then captured by the Duke Leopold of Austria and then sold to Henry VI, I think was it, of Germany, and who demanded then ransom money, 100,000 mark, does the book say, from England for Richard I. That John had that plotted, or had a part of it. Those are negative people say. Some positive people of John do say that he even just with the charm of his presence alone was able to raise the money to pay the ransom. To the ransom money, the book is saying that the ransom money was collected through selling church property and giving out town charters, and that brought John into deeper conflicts with the church. John was then, after Richard I ruling on the throne, and so what do I have to say first? Now, and he got the money and paid the money. Richard I came free and went back to England. During the whole reign of the 10 years of Richard I, or Richard Linheart, over 10 years, he was just 6 months in England. The book is saying, the quote, the truth is he was more French than English. And 6 months in England, and then he went again out and to the I think it was a revolt, right somewhere, at Château's castle in France, and there he died after being wounded from a crossbow hit. I heard somewhere that it was a young boy whom Richard I then talked with him after being wounded and absolved him. That is not said in the book, I read it somewhere. Okay, Richard I died then after being wounded at more or less little battle at Château's castle in France. and was followed by John on the throne. And John was then ruling in England from 1199 until 1216. And now that brought him deep into conflict with the church, that he was selling church property. And also did he accept it in 1206 John, not the new Archbishop of Canterbury. And also did John then prohibited any form of service apart of baptism. Therefore he was by the Pope excommunicated. When John was forced or pressured by the nobility of England to sign the Magna Carta in 1215, so that is all part of the House Service, I said. And in 1215, the Magna Carta, when saying how much power the king has, it curtailed the power of the king towards, against the nobility who had what power, and that the king could not just make new laws regarding the feudal system, that the king was giving land to the people, to the lords, and the lords were ruling that land and the people living on it. And in paying back the favor of having got the land by the Lord, they were sending then money, and also people went to the war efforts of the king and so on. So that is feudal system. Now that it brought him into conflict with the church, and also that he got the ransom money for his brother Richard I. And another thing at the same time is also the legend of Robin Hood. Robin Hood is the book saying a legend, and that Robin Hood was an outlaw living in Sherwood Forest in the center at Nottingham in England, north center England, and that he was stealing from the rich to give it to the poor. Now the whole story, because why I am saying all that, because the book is also talking quite some time about that section. Richard is regarded as one of the greatest heroes of England, and John, is the book saying, fades into insignificance, overshadowed or secured by Richard Linheart's reputation and by Robin Hood's. The book is more or less saying that Robin Hood, there's not so much yet proven to what degree he even existed. The Richard I, he of course existed. There's a book saying it's also not so completely clear, because it was a lot of time in France, and the book is saying that he had not such a great influence on the development of England or the monarchy in England. And about John, that John has many people who see him very negatively, other people very positive, or some people also positively. And that whole altogether is the story of Richard I, who was most of the time not in England but in France, in the Middle East, or in imprisonment, and of John, who was ruling who was ruling for 17 years, and then followed by his son Henry III on the throne. John died unexpectedly of a fever at Newark, and was then followed by his son Henry III on the throne in England. Now all that together is the story of Richard I. He has a statue at Westminster Abbey, for example, and he's regarded as one of the greatest heroes of England. And that is according to the history of the kings and queens of England and Scotland on the pages 52 and 53 and other ones. The positions and views expressed are the ones of a source and don't necessarily align with my own or with the ones of the entity spoken.